Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
But I'm sure she won't mind you coming back now that she's sweet on both of you and make you more cookies and stuff. Get that information, man.
Yeah.
Because, she plays herself down. She's the person that blew it wide open through Sutton. We need to get the full data information of the people.
We can do it.
I remember just 10 years ago with the system denying that Skull and Bones even existed.
Yeah, I've read the Anthony Sutton book, and the interesting thing is he was able to put all that together through the list because, we did flip through it even though we didn't film the list. You see a guy like Avril Harriman, he has a bio more than two-thirds of a page long because he did so many diplomatic things while doing all this skullduggery through Skull and Bones with Russia and Nazi Germany, alongside Prescott Bush and the others, as you know. And so that's how he was able to piece it all together, because it has all the kind of suppressed bios of all these individuals.
Yeah.
It shows what they did, shows their activity.
And then on top of that, she has this rare book from the Reese hearings in Congress, and I think it was 19...
But the government had destroyed.
Right. They thought, she thinks she has the only copy.
In fact, how much was she offered for that?
She actually bought it off of a guy who was offered a lot of money for it from the Rockefellers. They offered him, whatever you want. They said, name your price, and he didn't sell, and then she sold it to Charlotte. He sold it to Charlotte for, it was about $3,000.
And then didn't he fall down and hit his head then?
Oh,
I think I remember reading that. Okay, so what else you want to throw out at folks about this interview that's coming up live today? We're going to recap a lot of stuff she's talked about.
Charlotte's a wealth of knowledge, and, just sitting back listening to, the people from two generations back, she's really got her eye on things, and she's really been able to chronologicalize a lot of this stuff. In terms of education, that's her main forte, but then going into Skull and Bones, she's just a wealth of knowledge. So, you can learn a lot.
And you talk about her hidden influence with the Sutton book. The real story of Skull and Bones back in the early 1830s had to do with education, because they sent the key scholars over to Germany to learn these psychological techniques.
Because the Prussians had funded it to create total brainwashed zombies. That's on record. And now we have total brainwashed zombies.
Well, she's an expert on education, obviously. She's traced that back, and it ties in with the Skull and Bones. So it's all the more interesting for that reason.
By the way, this article that I intend to get to later this week if I have time, but I want to spend like an hour on it. It's about how Indonesia got founded, and it's a really wicked article, like, oh, it's authoritarian, but it's still, for the overall good. Singapore. Mm-hmm. But in there, it admits this British-trained, basically dictator set it up, and it admits that it's designed to have people not think for themselves and be robots. The article admits that. But it tells you how good that is, Aaron. Isn't that nice? Stay there. I want to finish up briefly with Skull and Bones, then I'm going to get to all the news. Then your phone calls coming up. Any other tidbits you want to add? We're going inside Skull and Bones, live with Charlotte Iserbyt in the video interview with shots of all this Skull and Bones paraphernalia. That's coming up, prisonplanet.tv. If you're watching us live on prisonplanet.tv, you'll be able to see these images. Later, it'll be archived there, and it'll also make its way out to the internet. And we were going to show these when Charlotte Iserbyt was on with us later. They've got video and still photos. But let's go over the grandfather clocks and why these are so important in all the Skull and Bones photographs. The way they arrange them in, the skulls, the grave robbing they do, the sexual activities in the cow manure, the worshiping of Lucifer. Some of this even caught on video by the New York Observer. Iserbyt had leaked all of this years before, but as you guys are talking, we'll show some of these photos. In fact, what is this on screen right now?
These are the certificates that go along with getting a grandfather clock when you're a member of Skull and Bones. She showed us the photo, too. It's not in this stack, of her grandfather. He was one of the two seated in the front row with the other 14 members, total of 16, right, on the back row.
Yes.
With the grandfather clock. The son told us a story about when you get the grandfather clock, they want you to show that you're willing to participate in Skull and Bones. So they give you the money, but you have to do the specifications for the clock. So they're all unique, and they all have different stylings. But they're all official Skull and Bones.
And so that's her father's certificate of that he's a full-born made member of the true mafia.
Pretty much. And that's a lot of correspondence there between him and the clockmaker, and how much it was. It wasn't, in today's dollars, it wasn't that expensive, around $300.
But the clock is also a signet where if you're living somewhere overseas, another Skull and Bones member who may have never met you from another class, they can come and see the clock. Sure. And it has certain symbols put into it.
And it's always 5 minutes fast, and it never stops. They have it timed out to where they make it to where it never stops. It's never supposed to stop.
Yeah, they told us the father was very particular about making sure the clock never stopped. And they never knew why he was so preoccupied with it, but it's because that's the tradition.
Yeah.
So...
And there's a good shot of the clock right there.
Well, it's more than that. They supposedly put something into the clock. It's a bunch of black magic, but...
Well, I agree, and you also see the associated fraternity. I forget the name of it. I'm not that familiar with the Greek letters, but...
Oh, right. Yeah, the actual Greek letters for Skull and Bones.
And she gets into their worship of Eulogia. Eulogia is their main deity.
She talked a little bit about that. Mainly it was how her father went into Bohemian Grove, and he apparently didn't like it that much. He only went a couple times.
Yeah, well, when he was dying of cancer, she's told this before on air, she was listening to him for months do radio interviews about the New World Order.
Yeah.
While she was taking care of him, and he repented and became a Christian and accepted Jesus and just wouldn't get into too many. He just said, it's horrible, it's horrible.
Yeah,
and that's what Nixon said, too.
He told her, he said, if I was still able to, I would help you. That's what he said basically a couple days before he passed. So, it was a pretty powerful interview. That makes
me want to cry. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think people will see the evil, and they're either going to accept it or they're going to push it away. And who knows what the society was like back then?
Well, there is something sexy and powerful about evil, true black evil. But once you really get close to it, you find out it is not good.
Right. And, his soul was probably, aching at some point. And hearing his daughter hit the path. And, she's faced a lot of stuff for the path she's taken. A lot of people, her family's kind of divided on how, all the work she does. So the son that we met is totally, with her. He's an interesting guy. Tell folks about him. Yeah, he was in Iraq. He won. Yeah, Samuel is his name. And right when we got there, he pulled out 2 photos from the Pentagon blast and was going over how, he's like, this is an incendiary device because there's no smoke, and here's the smoke 3 seconds later. Well, he says it's high-powered plastic explosive. Sure. A white-orange blast. Well, and there's people that were talking about smelling cordite in the Pentagon. They knew what it smelled like, and they could smell it. And, it just so happened that was the area of the building that was hit that had all the financial records from the $2 trillion that disappeared, that Rumsfeld was talking about on September 10th. So all that stuff got destroyed, and, there was a few people in there that I guess who were in on that investigation also died. So there wasn't about 100 people died in the. Have we shown we have shown the grandfather clock, correct? Yeah. Amazing. Well, go get on the phone with her right now. She's a sweetheart. Get up there, get the full data as soon as you can. She's leaving soon. Right. Good job, men. All right, that's coming up in an hour and a half, and I said I'd get into the news, and I'm going to get into the news. Oh, Aaron, real quick, you listened to my Christmas Eve audio blog. I don't know how to describe it, but I think it's got some good intel and some good issues that we haven't really talked about before, but also some issues we have. Kind of ties it all together. You've written an article about it. It's up on prisonplanet.com. It's also up on gcnlive.com. Alex Jones' audio blog, War on Common Sense, Losing Our Cultural Instincts Under the New World Order. What's your take on this latest audio blog?
Well, these audio blogs are always when you're very reflective and kind of almost in a spiritual mode. But we've talked so much in Endgame and the others about the artificial humanity that's being created under this New World Order system. And here you are at Christmas time talking about how even when our culture was never perfect, we're losing our cultural instincts and the common sense of just kind of following our ancestors and recognizing, what they have done for us in the past. And so it's very interesting, I think.
And people in the past did think about their progeny and future progeny, and it was all about building up humanity and that man could be improved. The globalist attitude is we're all animals, they are ascendant gods, we have to be exterminated, and that's actually in the National Geographic article. They talk to the minister mentor, the 80-something-year-old dictator of this Singaporean model system, and they admit it's the model for the New World Order. They don't tell you that the British set it up as a front. That is publicly available. The Singaporeans and the minister mentor, he's just an MI6 officer and a communist Marxist who set up a capitalist haven. And it's all about dehumanization. And he talks about Confucius was wrong. We cannot improve man. We can only basically dumb man down into vassal slaves. And this article basically ends with how great it is. I mean, these people are sick. This is one of the biggest magazines in the country writing an article selling you pure evil.
I haven't seen this article, Alex, but all that stuff you're talking about is riddled in what Aldous Huxley and all the others have always said, learning to love your servitude. You mentioned in this blog how people will mindlessly defend the road to servitude that we're being set under. It's about selling ourselves out as humans, I think. So it's definitely something to think about.
And they admit in this article that people are comfortable, they're horribly unhappy, but they have this petty baubles. And they describe it. He's talking to a psychiatrist, and the island's ruled by psychiatrists, and they spy on everybody, and they execute you, basically, if you criticize the government. But our media says it's great. And they also, I know, internally drug the water supply, but they do different tests on the population. And the psychiatrist describes it as slitting your wrist and easing into a hot tub of water. And they say, oh, we're dying out faster than anybody. We have one of the lowest replacement rates in the world. And it's like, it's wonderful. We're dying. We're dead. There's no future. It's beautiful. I mean, this is literally like Hellraiser. That's who these people are.
I've read some about the Tavistock Institute, and I think it's very interesting that Edward Bernays, who produced the Modern Consumer Society, on the one hand, was involved, and so were people, technocrats like Aldous Huxley. So where does that merge, the scientific dictatorship with buying into this bread and circuses and the baubles and the rest of the consumerism?
Well, we know that globalism is death, and we know it is, not improving man, it is destroying who we are. And it's being done greedily by the elitists who don't believe any of what they're pushing. They don't actually believe that we can't be improved. They, when you get deeper, believe they are improved and we're trash. And really, it's an active mode of full spectrum dominance, total control. Just like the Romans, if you resisted them too much, they just kill everybody. Or the Israelites. They would go into an area and people resisted, they wipe everybody out. This is actually an ancient form of domination. And because you won when everybody else is dead. And the problem is with the globalist is they're going to continue with this and kill each other. There could be two globalists 500 years from now with life extension technology, who are 600 years old, in a crystal palace on Jupiter or one of its moons, obviously not on Jupiter, the gas giant, who knows? And those two would be fighting with each other over the power. I mean, it is a guarantee.
Yeah, in our time, we're living under this nightmare like the H.G. Wells rhetoric, where we're going to split into two species. That's totally unfitting with the eugenic dream of becoming godhood. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're on power trips. They have high IQs. They compete with each other through a social Darwinistic template. But the truth is they are psychopathic or at least sociopathic control freaks who have constructed a scientific rationale and system to carry out their bloodthirsty enjoyment.
I don't know what else to say about that.
I mean, that's it. And this is who we face. And the average good person is almost blind to this because they can't see in that spectrum of psychological realm. And so what do you do, folks? I mean, I was once blind to this. You must face them. You must begin to see them. And once you can see them and you can read their writings, they think you're blind because they know in your fear, subconsciously, you are blind. You choose to not see it. It's right there, though.
I agree. It's very psychological domination. And they cold-bloodedly will carry out their rationale to kill off humanity at the intervals they see fit. So I'm totally frightened by this large eugenic system, and as you know, I've been reading on that for years, and it is what you say. It's very scary.
Now, I was told something by Rob Jacobson he'd never told me before, and I'm glad. I mean, to hear this now. If Rob interpreted this wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's good to have these moments live on air together. I meant to privately talk to you about this. We don't hire people who agree with us, because I found it's dangerous. They think that it's like some Valhalla and I'm floating around. And no, this is a bunch of hard work here. I don't hire people generally. I've had bad luck with people who are, quote, fans. I normally find that those really aggressive types, they just want to be Alex Jones. And so I don't really associate with a lot of those folks. I'm not saying a fan or supporter or someone who loves liberty is bad necessarily. I mean, just statistically, it's dangerous. I hire people who will work hard, and they don't have to even agree with me, but then everybody who works here a while finds out it's much worse than what I'd said. But I was told that for about 6 months, you kind of laughed behind the scenes, and it was a little bit of a joke, and you thought I was exaggerating. But as you studied more and more stuff now, you then found out that it was actually worse than I was even saying. Now, that's according to Jacobson. Is that true?
I don't know if I ever thought it was a joke totally, but yeah, I didn't fully understand the whole system. And definitely when I started looking into eugenics in particular, I realized the depths of it, I think.
Well, that's the key to all of it.
But I had been reading Kurzweil and Huxley and 1984 and all that stuff prior to being here. So in some ways I was on that path already. I don't know.
No, but I'm saying that happens with a lot of people. I mean, they hear all this, and it's the same thing new listeners hear. Look, I was the same way, Aaron. When I first got really awakened to a certain degree, now going back 17, 18 years ago, and I was about 19, I was more the Federal Reserve is private. There is a mega elite that doesn't want a free market. They want to shut off competition. I'd read their own writing, so I knew that was real. But I'd hear people talk about Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, worshiping stone owls. And I would tell those folks that came up to me in parking lots or wrote me letters or came to events, you're crazy. But then I found out that was all real. And I mean, it's when you discover just how crazy this is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I came from, I knew about stage terror, actually, just intuitively. But no, I didn't know about all these secret groups. And they dominate us psychologically and tell you that you're wrong to think about 9/11 being an inside job or the other false flag terrors. And then when you do find out about everything going on behind the scenes, or even just a little bit of it, it is frightening. And sometimes laughter is also a sign of fear, actually.
Yeah. But then you realize that we're already in a form of psychological death and physical degeneration that being accelerated by these people. And so the true death is the death of the will to give in to them. And then you realize that that's the big trick. There is no choice. It's either you give up your individuality, you give up your spirit, your soul, your heart to these people, or you resist them. And for me, that's no choice at all. And sure, they're scary. They could come kill me and my whole family today. They could set me up. They could pull me over and throw drugs in my car. But to give into that fear is to die. It's the little death. Giving in to fear over and over again, you're not even really alive anymore. Now you are being governed by weaker instincts.
Wait, but I agree, because this thing started so long ago before I was born, and it's said to have already been finished, like it's a done deal. But what we do to define ourselves by taking action in the time we're at, I agree. I mean, that's where life is, what we choose to take action in, how we stand up in our time to what we can.
Well, that's their greatest assault, and one of their greatest lies is they tell us we don't have free will. They tell us we don't have power. They tell us we don't have determination. But they know the truth. They know how powerful the human is. The human mind, over 110 years ago, Max Planck and others envisioned and wrote on chalkboards equations that can destroy entire cities or power entire planets. Imagine 110 years later what the great thinkers have envisioned. That's why the globalists control education. They put on high-tech reservations, the latest technological developments to hoard to themselves. They know the secrets. They already have advanced technology. They don't want the general public to take part in this, and they want to wall us off from it. not to keep us as some little toy, but to phase us out. And that's what the average cheeseburger-eating, beer-drinking, tough guy out there needs to know. That's what the average liberal bureaucrat needs to know, the average cop. That's a side issue. I told Dew and Douglas when they went out to the airport that the cops would come, even though they were on public property, on city streets that aren't on the airport, and tell them to leave, even though they have no right under the First Amendment to do it. And at first, the cops come up and got their number, ran their IDs, and then said you can stay until more cops showed up. And of course, the higher you went, the more thuggish. And they just got out and said, we have the video, I don't care what your rights are. You're going to leave or we're going to arrest you. And that's what's happened to you with security guards in places like Kansas City on a sidewalk. Federal security guards from a half mile away come up with guns and say, you can't videotape the Federal Reserve from half a mile away. And you guys wisely went ahead and left, because when you started arguing, they put their hands on their guns and said, look. And that's what tyranny is. It's a little monkey, a nobody, and you have now become a slave. I have become a slave when a monkey outside of law in a little monkey suit with their hands on their guns, with no authority, no law, criminally, can just boss you around. That is the nature and the essence of it, is their exercise of this upon us. And the Austin Police Department failed the test yesterday and behaved like absolute criminal tyrants. You have disgraced your family. You have disgraced your forefathers and mothers. You are a shame to humanity. And you better be glad I'm rebuking you. You better be glad somebody will talk to you straight. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. We'll be right back. How many times has the government been caught lying to us, poisoning our water, injecting children with biological weapons, radiating soldiers, women, children, tens of thousands of Nazis being brought in to run every facet of government? East Germans, former KGB, NKVD, hired 8 years ago to help set up Homeland Security. On record. And now they got telescreens going in. Now they're saying spy on your neighbors. Now they're announcing TSA is going to be in malls and on the highway. We told you what they were going to do. They told us. They're tyrants. They're criminals. They're here to eat your lunch. And of course they've got a propaganda corps telling you how much they love you, telling you how they're protecting you from terrorists. There's not just all the evidence, there's your common sense. Who in your gut are you afraid of? Who in your gut are you concerned about? When you see a photo of a guy with a turban and a big beard, do you have fear? Or when you see President Obama or Hillary Clinton or Newt Gingrich, what's your gut tell you? When you see David Rockefeller or Henry Kissinger, what's your gut tell you? When you see Homeland Security on C-SPAN, you know you recoil. You know you're dealing with hardcore criminals. Oh, their low-level minions are a bunch of useful idiots. I mean, here's an example. Here's an example of all the news stories today. I've got one article out of Raw Story, and it's linked to the AP, Huffington Post. Others have got the full text of it. But here it is. Counterterrorism expert tells cops kill militant Muslims, including children. Now, when I read something like that, I have the whole backstory, or a lot of it. I remember troops coming home and giving interviews about how they go into whole villages in Afghanistan and Iraq and kill everyone, including babies. And then the Army came out with Private Bruckheimer in one case. You can pull up Ithaca Times. They came out on Fox News and said, well, let's clarify. We only kill everyone in certain villages. We only torture children in front of certain people's parents. Remember that in the Washington Post? They're trying to sell you on evil. All these Hollywood movies now where they show our troops torturing and killing people because they're the good guys. They're trying to warp your mind to make it societally acceptable to have a red terror type scenario. This is real. But when I read this, I understand what it is. I've already known they're training the police with things like this. They're training police in every major city that militias and gun owners and veterans are their #1 threat and are going to attack them any minute. That will probably happen if they start trying secret arrest and internment. Yeah, patriots will start fighting. They won't be terrorists. They'll be fighting a Soviet/Nazi system, and they're going to be called terrorists. We're trying to peacefully expose this before it gets to that. You think the globalists care, police and military, if half of you get chewed up fighting with millions of veterans? They're putting us into a scenario where they want to fight to chew you up, to then bring in the international forces, which is in all the documents, the NLE-09, the FEMA, the drills I've been to. That's phase 2. But when I read this, I understand what it is. They get the cops all in there. They hold up the little Muslim puppet and say, ooh, Muslim puppet, kill its babies. Because they know if they can train people to think about killing people's babies, they'll do anything. What do the Nazis teach? What do the black supremacists teach? Kill the white women, kill the white babies, kill the black babies. If they can get that, they can get anything. Then they remove the Muslim puppet and put the cowboy puppet. Kill him. Kill him. We're going to open the phones up here on my end at 888-201-2244, 888-201-2244. We're going to open the phones up on the Genesis end at 800-259-9231, 1-800-259-9231. And we're going to give each caller about 45 seconds. That way you can all get on. I'm just going to shut up, fire out your question, your comment. I'm moving on to the next person. I'm taking full calls during this hour. Okay, I mentioned I'd read all these headlines at least. Here are some of them. Almost everything in America is a crime. Now 14 of the most ridiculous things that Americans are being arrested for. I'm going to try to go over that later. Mexico drug cartels increasingly turn to youths to do bloody work. But our government isn't worried about that. They're worried about tracking gun owners. Cops' use of illegal steroids, a big problem. This out of AOL News. Well, I mean, you got up in Fort Worth, you got the police chief and other people on record saying they're all taking roids. I mean, this is America. They got to get them all juiced up to beat up old ladies. Continuing here, I couldn't imagine taking steroids, folks. I'm so aggressive right now with my testosterone. Who knows what I'd do. Continuing. Feds want gun sellers to report rifle sales. This is the camel's nose under the tent flap I told you over a year ago. The way the Justice Department would go after the Second Amendment with an extrajudicial move is just to order gun dealers under an emergency to report more than more than one semi-automatic sold. And now they're doing it on border states. No law, they're just doing it. Texas Tribune, hardcore evil. Totally criminal. Former TSA agent gets probation, not jail time for stealing passengers' computers. Natural News. Continuing an article by Jason Douglas yesterday, Medicare gives CPR to death panels. And then voila, today, New York Times is on it. Obama returns to end-of-life plan that caused stir. And remember the Bill Gates clip? He said, yeah, they're death panels. Don't give grandma health care, we can hire 10 teachers. Introducing the idea that when people are killed, when people die, when people are denied things, that helps the young. You ignorant teachers that buy into that, you're the ones that'll be getting the plug pulled on you. It's all about austerity, getting us fighting over resources with each other. Once they socialize things, then they play us off against each other. They control the media. They're the gods. It makes them the gods. It's a fraud. You let every control freak sicko run your life. That's why socialism's so horrible. There's always these well-meaning liberals that bleeding hearts that let's help people. It's like the Ring of Mordor. You cannot do good with it. Collectivism doesn't work. You cannot do good. Oh, it'll do a little good here. You may get a little good, but you'll get 1,000 times enslavement and degradation in the end. History is replete. There is no doubt it is a law of human affairs. Look at this horrible article out of the Wall Street Journal. So young and so many pills. More than 25% of kids and teens in the U.S. take prescriptions on a regular basis. It goes on to say toddlers are now being put on statins. Toddlers are now being put on heart medication, on blood pressure medication preemptively. What does the New Freedom Initiative say? They want 50% of kids by 2015. This is Cicera 2005 when they first came out with the plan 5 years ago. On drugs, and now they want statins and lithium in the water, source ABC News. They're not playing games. But in 1984 land, they can be announcing they want to put drugs in the water, but then when I say they're announcing it, I'm still the kook. Because, see, a yuppie can't admit a threat, can't admit we're right, so they just go, help, put my kids on statins immediately, put them on Ritalin immediately. Because if the cowards don't give in to it, then they'd have to admit it was a bad thing. So the average lackey out there just runs towards tyranny with their hands out drooling because they have to give in to everything or admit to themselves that it's the wrong thing. So, see, once you sell out to evil, then you've got to give in to all of it. Man, I am wound up. I am so fired up today. Your phone calls, blitzkriegs of news, Charlotte Iserbyt, Inside Skull and Bones. It's all coming up. Transmission continues. We've got both phone systems open, 888-201-2244 here in our command center. And the Genesis Cape Canaveral system at 800-259-9231. Let's go to the Genesis phone lines now. Troy in New York. You're on the air worldwide. Welcome.
Alex, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, let me first say I'm giddy as a child to finally get through on you, and I got a lot of interesting things to say. My family, whole family, like, for instance, my grandmother was Air Force Research. My Grandpa John is declassified CIA. My Grandpa Mo, which my grandmother went through 8 husbands, that's besides the point. My Grandpa Mo was, what was he, Secret Service or something. But anyways, my grandfather, when I was a child, okay, my last name's Ailerman. It's German. Don't get me wrong. I'm not proud of
No, it's good to be proud to be German. It's good to be proud to be Russian or Chinese. The point is, go ahead.
But what I'm saying, though, is my grandfather was a Nazi, okay?
Okay, well, I wasn't proud of that. I understand. Yeah, go ahead.
And my grandfather Mo told me when I was a child, he's on the Iserbyt side of the family, he told me this a long time ago. See, I was awakened when I was a child. I'm 32.
Troy, we're doing phone blitzes today. Make your point quick.
All right, he told me a long time ago that the Nazis, he says, Troy, it's not over. He says they'll be running almost everything in America. You'll see when you get older. He told me this a long time ago, Alex, and I really want to tell you I appreciate what you're doing for everybody, man, and I'm trying to get, I want you to send, I got some, my email in there for you. I want you to send me some stuff, some bullet points, because I'm going to do a flyer thing, and I'll use my own money to print it out. Because running around saying watch Alex Jones InfoWars just isn't working well enough. So I'm going to print out a flyer with your bullet points and let everybody read it that way. I'll print up millions of them if I have to.
Troy, God bless you. And I could talk to you for 10 hours and we'll never get to the rest of the people. But it's funny you mention that because one of the notes I wrote this morning was getting into the Nazis. You know, you've got a lot of people that say the Vatican runs the whole world, or the Jews run the whole world, or the Masons run the whole world, or space aliens run the whole world. I mean, it runs the gamut. The truth is, evil people and evil mafias run almost every country and, quote, racial or religious group. That's what happens over time with entropy. Corruption takes hold. That's why all societies and cultures fall. But as long as they can make it about only one group is evil or another group is evil, then you can never defeat the corruption because everybody's always saying they're good, it's the other group that's bad, instead of recognizing human nature. People are people. But on the issue of Nazis, if I have time, I'll bring that up with Charlotte later because it is a bullet point I want to cover. Because when you really get deep into this, the Rothschilds are right up at the top of the New World Order. They are Jewish. Well, then why were they involved financing Hitler? But then some Rothschilds never got out of France and were killed. I mean, it gets very strange. Why did our government bring tens of thousands of Nazis over and then publicize Israelis and you know, well, Jewish groups, even before Israel existed, hunting down Nazis? Simon Wiesenthal. I mean, now it's in the New York Times that the Bushes were Nazis and the London Guardian that the Bushes were Nazis and that the Nazis were brought over here en masse to run, to not be part of, to run most federal departments. I mean, that is, they wouldn't be the cabinet head. They would be the head of the bases, the head of the projects, the heads of everything. Why? It's more than just they had brains, which obviously they did. It was German physicists that developed the plans for the A-bomb that was then transferred to the United States before the war. It's more than that, the philosophy. But we didn't get the philosophy of eugenics and extermination from the Germans. They got it from England and the U.S., and we got it from them. And that's the history, but I'm already digressing. I said I'd take a bunch of calls, and I'm not doing it. I'm trying here. Tim in Washington. Tim, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, Alex, how's it going today? I appreciate all of it you're doing for everybody, and I just had a quick question for you, and I'll take it off air.
Okay.
I was wondering if you were familiar with the Aldous Huxley Aquarian conspiracy with the subterfuge of the boomers in the 60s, and I was wondering your take on that as far as its...
I am familiar, but why don't you encapsulate it for folks?
I'm just now learning about it myself. It's so much convoluted news or information on the internet that it's really hard to
Well, I mean, what do you get from it? What do you get from it?
I think it's one of the most ingenious plans ever divulged by a strategist, and it throws up huge walls as far as what people can trust, and it's pretty much created this diversion of...
Quantify it, though. Quantify it. Restate it for folks, because I heard the part about... restate your full question.
Well, do you think... I guess the question is that how much of an effect do you think it's having still today, as far as... But I mean,
you said several things I didn't make out. State it again.
What are you familiar with the Aldous Huxley's of Aquarian conspiracy with Alan Watts, Timothy Leary, the LSD?
Yes.
The British invasion, the 60s revolution of free love. Okay. Do you think that there's a way to combat that with a media campaign?
Well, look, that's what I talk about a bit in this new 21-minute audio blog that's up on Infowars.com, is how they had to destroy all the other existing orders to build their new order on top of it, and they had to break up the family, and they had to teach people to be shallow so they never formed deep relationships and basically develop in their hierarchy of needs to being a fully developed person. It's about arrested development, a junior high mentality. It's very, very sophisticated to get into all of it. But the best way to look at it is from a narrow spectrum, looking at one small piece of it, the feminist. And it's all declassified. It's on record. She admits it. Gloria Steinem was funded by the CIA to create Miss Magazine. They put down having children, having families, but they all themselves had children and had big families. You know, they know that's what we're designed to do and how great it is. They just don't want you to have it so you can be isolated so they, the hyenas, can rip your guts out. It's kind of like Meerkat Manor. You know, the ruling Meerkat group doesn't want your group to get together and breed and be strong and stick together. They teach you it's cool to fight with each other. They teach you it's cool to run off on each other, to snitch to the other, you know, boss Meerkat group so your group gets destroyed. I mean, it just goes into basic tribe pack psychology. So they attack our strong tribal instincts, which are a defense mechanism against their dehumanization, because they fully want to take over human society and remake it and atomize it to where it's unrecognizable, to where the language is destroyed, where you cannot communicate with people. And we're already reaching that tipping point where much of the population literally has no original thoughts in their heads, and you can't communicate with them, and they're threatened by large words, they're threatened by ideas, and they are destroyed. But they don't count because the enemy just has armies of them. We have armies of people that can think. I'll take a thinker over 10 drones. Now, the larger, see, I said I take a lot of calls. This is a very complex issue. It's totally real. And it's all on record. They all wrote about it. It's all been implemented. But the feminist situation, going back to Edward Bernays, the nephew of course, Sigmund Freud, he worked for the Department of War. Before it was the Department of Defense, General Motors, Ford, PR. He's the reason you eat bacon with eggs. They couldn't really get rid of pork bellies. They had so many pork bellies because that was a part people saw as trash meat. It was only used in flavoring in stews and green beans and for lard and things. And so they had a national push that there's nothing better than bacon with eggs. Now, that overall isn't an evil thing, except it shows their power. They financed the feminist movements that the Rockefellers financed, Margaret Sanger, all the big suffrage groups. They took something that sounded reasonable, that I would support women voting, and you know, being part of the larger democratization of the Republic society, to a point, because then the government domesticates women and uses them as an army, because women generally, on average, are more conformist than men. That's why Hitler said, first you get the women, then you have the children, so follow the men. Hitler mainly targeted women. Not that women are bad, it's just the enemy psychologically saw this. And Goebbels wrote about Bernays. He admired much of his propaganda, but hated him because he was a Jew, Joseph Goebbels, but he used a lot of Bernays' systems as well. And so Bernays simply had the big cigarette makers finance all the feminist groups, gave them tons of money, paid for their bus tickets in 1920s. Before that, their train tickets, their hotels, and all they had to do was smoke cigarettes and say, show the men smoke cigarettes. Yeah, show the men. It was men that owned the tobacco companies. So it was a big joke on women, used them as a weapon to then destroy the family and to teach them it was cool to have birth control, that it was cool to have abortions, that it was fun. And now just look at society, totally wrecked, women totally dehumanized, turned into nothing but sexual objects, men arrested at age 5, just oafish, weak, blithering, cowardly, gibbering people who can't be serious or focus. Just total psychological domination, annihilation. Blacks had over 50% legitimacy in the 1940s. It's now 93%. I was wrong. I looked up the national statistics. 52% of blacks are never born, not 51. Over half blacks never make it out of the womb. Devastating victory by the globalists posing as liberals. Margaret Sanger said, we will get these weeds. We will pose as liberals. We will hire the blacks. We will pose as liberals. We will hire the head women. We will get them. We will destroy them. We will annihilate them. And they do. They murder you with pleasure. And they give the women all the different IUD systems. Half the women that took them or more got sterilized. It's an accident, with the Dalcon Shield system. Oh, it's an accident that this shot you got made you sterile. It's an accident. It's just total warfare, just scientific, pounding you, posing as chicken neck liberals. Oh, I'm so liberal. Oh, I'm so loving. And then the fake conservatives posing as pro-family as they vote for it all and pass it all and drive it all through. Just a giant scientific warfare assault on all of humanity, totally rampaging at full pace towards global government mass extermination. We'll be right back with your phone calls. I'm Alex Jones. Obama is meant to play the part of the puppet, take the blame, be politically destroyed, and then later built back up after he's left office, just like George W. Bush is, or Bill Clinton. Yeah, he's come out and said Michael Vick deserves a second chance. The NFL player who tortured dogs to death, he didn't just fight them. He tortured them and electrocuted them and things. And but the lady at Austin International Bergstrom, the rape victim, who said, you're not going to grab my breast, and the woman said, yes, we are. Then the Austin police slammed her down to the ground, drug her by handcuffs. It was all a big celebration. She doesn't deserve a second chance giving into your rape gangs. It's all a bunch of baloney. Okay, I said I'm going to hurry and take calls, and I'm not really doing that. It was quite a rant earlier, but when I think about these murderers, I get angry. Let's talk to Michael in California. Michael, you're on the air.
Hi, Alex. Belated Merry Christmas to you, yours, InfoWars, and GCN.
Now you have a great New Year coming up, my friend.
You too. You too. May be blessed to all of us. Hey, have you seen the new John Pilger documentary, The War You Don't See? Have you seen that yet?
No, but he's the Australian, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Man, listen, I want to get him on. I really respect him, even though I don't agree with socialism. I mean, he's one of the bleeding heart liberals that allows all this to happen. But overall, his analysis of Obama, the globalist, I mean, he's a really thought-provoking guy.
It's really interesting how you have carried out your thoughts this morning. But in his new documentary, he has Cynthia McKinney on there calling Barack Obama a warmonger. And it is outstanding. He's basically turning the media on its heels right now, and he's going after the hand that feeds him. He's even biting back at the BBC, ITN, and others.
No, I know. Of course, he's a famous photographer, took some of the most famous photos in Vietnam, little burned girl, napalmed, and the rest of it, for those that don't know who we're talking about. And this is the time to get aggressive. This is the time to get out of left-right. This is the time to stop mincing words. That's what Paul Craig Roberts' editorial is about today on Infowars.com. He's one of our writers. Very honored to have him. It's time to turn the heat up in Infowar. It's time to pull out the stops, make a splash. You are the revolutionaries against the globalists. We're really counter-revolutionaries against their full-spectrum takeover. And so I will definitely check into that. I know about his new film. I've told Jaron to try to get him. We've been trying for months. I appreciate your call. Let's go ahead and talk to Jonathan in Kansas. Jonathan, you're on the air.
Yes, Alex.
Yes, sir.
Fair.org, that is Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, reported in the 8th of October that Chris Matthews actually advocated for Phil Donahue to get kicked off the air because he had anti-war views. So Chris Matthews poses as someone...
No. He's a total hypocrite. They do what they're told. That through the Defense Department and through the Department of Labor and other agencies, he is directly paid by the government, just like Armstrong Williams. Chris Matthews isn't a liberal. He's not a conservative. He is a government operative, period. None of it's real. But to fool people, it's just like in England, or you'll go to tourist traps like Port Aransas, Texas. I found out one company owns almost every one of the big tourism things with the fake sharks out front, and where you buy the beach towels and caps and chairs, or shirts or bathing suits. One company owns all the big ones, and there's a few little mom and pops. And just like in England, the vast majority of people buy from two stores. They're owned by the same company. But one has a green scheme, one has an orange scheme. And so people think there's a choice. And that's all it is with Fox News and with MSNBC. But Fox News knows that you've woken people up, I've woken people up, and now if they want to stay relevant, they've got to play the part of patriots so that at the key point, they can still exercise influence. That shows how bad we're beating them. Do you see the beauty? We got them on their heels. It's time to realize it and put the spurs in. Anything else, sir? All right, he's gone. Let's jam in another, and I'm coming back with more. Let's go ahead and talk to who's up next here. Noah in Oklahoma, you're on the air.
Hey, Happy New Year, Alex.
Good. What's up?
Yesterday, you were talking, you briefly mentioned it, and as you were passing, I thought, man, I wish you would have went into that, but it was about
Your cell phone's cutting out. Say it again.
Okay. I've got a bad cell. The letter carriers are going to be carrying transmitters. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
yesterday?
folks, that's CBS, AP, Reuters. Will you print me letter carriers? Let's find a Patriot article, because that'll be the easiest for me to remember. Then it'll link through, give me the mainstream articles. Post office vehicles now to spy. Post office vehicles now to be worse than Google. Or something like that. And then it's got the articles linked in it. But yes, they've now announced. Well, they've announced years ago they're spying on you and trying to see what kind of mail you're getting. But now they're going to have big data grabbers.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and your own family. Now, this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years. The crazy part is, he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties. In fact, Barron's called his work a dire prophecy. Recently, he created a video, which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com. Watch the free video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com. Hi, this is Alex Jones. You've heard me talk about the delicious, easy-to-fix, and very storable foods from eFoodsDirect.com. I've told you for years that eFoods Direct has the best storable food on the planet. Now it's that time of year again, and their holiday special is here. They have 2 holiday price packs for you to put into your reserves for a secure future or to share with others. The first is a 6-month bulk supply in 10 cans. And the second is a 5-week supply of quick and easy-to-fix meals, including delicious bakery items shipped in heavy tote bags. Now, for a limited time, when you order 2 or more of these special holiday packs, you'll get free shipping on your entire order. Call now, 800-409-5633, or visit them at efoodsdirect.com/Alex. That's 800-409-5633, or efoodsdirect.com/Alex. Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
They have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?
Today, it seems like nobody does care. And right now in Washington, D.C., we have seen a fall of the Republic.
Get your copy of Fall of the Republic on DVD at Infowars.com or watch it online right now in super high quality at PrisonPlanet.tv.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
All right, I'm going to hit some financial news, and then we're going to go right back to your calls. Charlotte Iserbyt is coming up with groundbreaking skull and bones intel. She's agreed to have the guys come back up and interview her. You know, the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, when we start to resist evil, we begin to have success, and we grow our liberty muscles. We grow our minds, and we are fulfilled. It is our job to build and create and be honorable and to resist evil. And sometimes be defeated by it, sometimes win. But it's the battle that matters. It's being in the field, on the field, in the fight. Resistance is victory. Fighting back is victory. Knowing who the enemy is victory. And I mean, it is so valuable to me that I am not afraid of being killed. I'm not. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of being weak and human. I'm afraid of the enemy lying about me and trying to destroy my name to destroy my work. But that won't work because other people have now learned the paradigm shift information, and it's loose. I tell you, I get a little bit of an adrenaline rush every time I think about it. A lot of you out there who are new listeners, you get excited when your team wins the Super Bowl and it's down to sudden death overtime and they kick that field goal with 3 seconds left, or they run, through and the running back jumps over the top and, gets the touchdown by 1 inch. You have that adrenaline rush. That's a false adrenaline rush off of symbolic warfare. But when I'm in the info war and truly defeating and having victories against the globalist, it is more valuable than all the accolades, all the power, all the women, all the art, all the everything means nothing compared to defending liberty. Feeling really good right now. I'm sorry. Okay, I got to stop right now because I said I was going to take your phone calls. I really should take off a week more often. I'm just so recharged. Oh, it's amazing. I'm too recharged, actually. Oh, man. I'm alive, sucking in breath, and I love life so much that I'm willing to lay down my life for others so that they can be free and so that evil doesn't win, because I can't stand corruption and manipulators and liars and people that know humanity's secrets, and they use those secrets not to empower and build and unloose the human spirit, but they use it to shutter it and to dumb it down. That is such a crime against the universe, a crime against the Maker. And you know, I don't know all of the great creator's plans. I don't know all the handiwork. I can't even begin to imagine it. But I can see what I can see. And let me tell you something. I couldn't get mad at God no matter what happened to me, no matter what comes, because I know it's all part of the plan. And that is a great feeling. It's the best feeling in the world. And again, I'm not on some high horse telling you I'm pious or I'm good or I got all the answers. I'm just telling you, I'm tuned in to love. I'm tuned in to light. I'm tuned in to decency. I'm tuned in to the ever-flowing living waters. That's the only way to describe it. It just flows and never stops, and it is good. And one drink out of this well, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever really peer into the universe, into infinity, if you ever get outside this controlled matrix false grid and tap in to just one sliver, one micron of our destiny, you won't have fear anymore. You won't have fear of the New World Order. You'll have fear of God. But it's not fear like I'm scared. It's fear of not fulfilling your mission. All right, I want to get into some financial news and then your calls. Ex-Shell president sees $5 a gas by 2012. That's now a year and 3 days away. That's exactly what the other oil execs have told our source. You know him as Lindsey Williams. That's CNN, flaunting it in your face. They don't tell you it's dollar devaluation that's going to cause it. Home prices fall faster in biggest U.S. cities, AP. All part of the recovery we're in. The recession ended back in June of a year and a half ago. Remember, the TV said so. They also said fluoride's good for you, and they also said feminism is good for you. They also said abortion's good for you. They also said bisphenol A is good for you. They told you GMO crops are good for you. They told you DU's good for you, troops. Must be true, huh? They said so. Consumer confidence shows surprise drop in December. Oh, it's surprising. CNBC. I see that every month. Oh, it's surprising you don't have confidence. Things are so good. What's wrong with you? You're stupid. Ignore what you see in the street every day. Believe CNN. Believe Fox News. U.S. changes how it measures long-term unemployment. Well, they've done that decades ago. Under the old calculations, and we've had top economists from the government, previously in the government, number 2 under Reagan, and others, countless Nobel Prize winners telling you that people like, what's his name? Who's the Nobel Prize winner that we've had on a bunch? Who quit the World Bank right when all those documents got leaked? Joseph Stiglitz. That's a memory trick. If you can't remember the name of the person, you just remember the information they put out. That it's been about 22% for about 3 years, and now it's about 23.5. The TV tells you it's 9.8, though, so it must be true. Now they're changing it again to further cover up the unemployment, but USA Today tells you they're changing it to give you a more accurate number. They're going to intensify the lies and then tell you that it's to stop the lying. Lies within lies, 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 within lies. When the truth is just so much easier. Oh, it looks harder. The world tries to tell you the truth is harder. But no, it's just better to surrender to the truth and to begin seeking it and by degree learning more of it. New global banking rules proposed on bankers' pay. And the UN and other global organizations are proposing it. This is the shareholders of the big banks want to set caps on pay and scapegoat the CEOs who are horrible scallywags, but that's a diversion. AP. Non-U.S. banks gain from Fed's crisis fund more money in QE2 and now QE3 pumping out FT. And a bunch of other news here. Price of silver soaring, Wall Street Journal. It's almost doubled in the last year. Unexpected surge. It wasn't unexpected for us because we're not living in la-la land. An unexpected surge in investor demand is sending silver prices soaring, and speculators and mining companies are digging in. The past 4 months, the metal has upended forecast, not our forecast, it didn't upend ours, rising 51%, I'm sorry, I said almost, to a series of 30-year highs before inflation. Silver closed Thursday to $29.31, and it continues. It's up even more today. This is from gold continues gains amid thin trading on weak dollar. That's out of the Times. We've got a bunch of other news articles here dealing with that. There's also another article here by a well-meaning person saying, watch the other guys closing critics explain economic collapse. And it goes into how the Will Ferrell movie is so good. At the end, it tells you who to blame. It's about bankers robbing people. But at the end, it explains that the top 2% are making too much money, and that the answer is basically collectivism, which is what the mega, ultra, less than 1/1000th. I mean, out of 300 million people, you're talking maybe a couple hundred superclass. They want to shut down somebody making $1 million a year. This movie with Will Ferrell tells you, go have the government rob the guy making $1 million a year, when it's the guy making $1 million a year that all the studies show employs most people, not the mega rich. So see, the mega rich are going to scapegoat the giant horde of people losing their jobs, losing their welfare, losing their unemployment benefits on people making $200,000, $300,000, $1 million, $5 million a year. And just watch, for all those people out there who buy into this, your life's not going to get better when they shut down the middle class. Sure, if somebody had $1 million 200 years ago, they were rich. If they had $1 million 100 years ago, they were wealthy. $1 million, if you do the numbers to 1960s numbers, is about the equivalent of having $100,000 in the bank. Is somebody with $100,000 rich? No. I mean, in most big cities, you can't buy a 4-5-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood for less than $1 million. Is that a rich person? Somebody with $1 million in the 60s would probably have 6 or 7 houses and huge companies. It's all made up. But now they have little Hollywood messages at the end during the credits saying, rich people making hundreds of thousands, they're your enemy. Get them. And the average person says, oh, isn't that good of Hollywood? They're telling me who the bad man is. Now, I'll try to get to all of you before she comes up. We may even go into overdrive today to take more of your calls. I feel like I could do 100 hours right now. I am wound up. I haven't even scratched the surface of the important news. Oh, by the way, a caller asked about this earlier, so we went and dug it out. This is the New York Times, and it always tells you in a real cute way, oh, your 7-year-old's being trained to spy on you for environmental crimes that aren't crimes yet, like taking a hot bath or leaving the sink running while you brush your teeth. You know, that's an actual article. Or, oh, look, the 14-year-old Explorer Scouts are training with Homeland Security to take on disgruntled veterans, kill them, and confiscate their guns. Isn't it sweet? Well, here's this one. The postman always pings twice. Oh, it's cutesy, cutie cakey time. The Postal Service recently announced it has lost $8.5 billion in the last year, despite cutting more than 100,000 jobs. Without new revenue and other changes, it will get it back on financial footing. Formerly, the service has a unique asset that could allow it to make money by collecting valuable data that could contribute to the company's safety and economic health. Its far-reaching network of trucks. And then it goes into it, and it shows a child making a little paper toy of a paper car, a paper Jeep with an antenna on the top. They found if they show it as childlike, that'll hit an area of your brain that is associated with loving and nurturing children. You're like, oh, they're going to be surveilling me. Oh, children, walk towards the light. It's a bug zapper. And it says the service's thousands of delivery vehicles will now be collecting wireless data. It goes on. Here's another one. Monitoring America, how the U.S. sees you. And I got another one here. They're turning post office trucks into Stasi data collection nodes. It says they're going to have data collectors picking up wireless transmissions. They're going to drive around snooping for environmental problems. So it'll drive by your house. They'll claim they picked up something toxic. Now they have an excuse to send the green police to your house. And it's all admitted, so I thought you'd want to know that. They're going to use every federal agency out there for this. It's kind of like the DEA, it turns out, and we already knew this, is spying on people worldwide in non-drug related stuff. And they have all these movies coming out about the great troops and people that are fighting drugs worldwide. Yeah, they're sent to kill people that don't launder their money through the globalist. But I'm done ranting. Let's go to Robert in Switzerland. Robert, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello, Alex Jones.
Hey, buddy. How you doing over there in Switzerland?
Oh, we have snow. It's wonderful outside. Looks like New Year.
But the New York Times says that is because of warming.
Yeah. You can believe that. I don't. That's the biggest lie that ever was said. We have so much snow and cold and all over Europe and also in the United States. It's snow. I don't believe that. That's just a money-making deal.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind today?
Oh, I wanted to call you. You're doing a great job. You know, what you're saying, I know that for 25 years, and I'm doing the same job like you. I try to tell the people in Switzerland what's coming down. It's not just in the United States, it's all over the world.
It's a new world order.
Yeah, and this is horrible. Horrible. And please, listeners, believe it what Alex Jones says. It is like this. People used to look at me and they thought I'm crazy. But everything, what I said and what I know is happening. And you have right. And I tell you a story. This is a story I did, how do I say this? I did some business with the United States. And I transferred the money with Western Union. You heard me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I did that for many years. And one day comes a telephone from the Swiss Western Union office and said, you cannot send any more money. The money you send, that is not... They cannot pick it up. She is not allowed to get the money. And you have to pick up the money back in your Western Union office. And so I called Western Union, the main office in Switzerland, and I said, what is going on? They said, well, Homeland Security has you on the list, and they thought I financing a bomb.
And again, this is happening everywhere. Millions of people on the list, and now they're saying this woman that wouldn't let him grab her breast, she can't fly anymore, and she's banned from the airport. Now they're on the streets. They're going to be in every street corner. You're not going to be able to leave your neighborhood, travel. It's just like the Soviet Union. It's internal checkpoints. It's bona fide ultra-tyranny. And again, Homeland Security is for the homeland. What did the Nazis call Germany? The fatherland, the homeland, the Reich, the land. And it's the same system. It's authoritarian tyranny. And no judge, no jury. Obviously, if you were building bombs, you would have been arrested. But no, it's just no money can be sent by you now. We say so. No judge, no jury. So how did this end, Robert?
Well, so I don't send the money anymore through Western Union. I send it through the bank, but I'm still doing business. But this woman works for a company on Western Union.
Stay there. Well, I give myself an A, not an A+. Getting a lot of calls last hour. Probably got to 10 or so, or more. But I want to go to Leo, Tyranny, everybody else that's holding. In 30 seconds, Robert in Switzerland, finishing up. How does the story end with you trying to send money through Western Union? Robert in Switzerland, you still there, buddy? Okay, he's gone. He misunderstood that I was going to hold him over. Let's talk to Leo in Mass. Thanks for holding, Leo. You're on the air.
Hi, yeah. You're talking about, I've been a subscriber for a while. You're talking about this surveillance state going up. Let's have our own version of it. I asked you I set that into you to do a video game, and where people would be going around finding these things and trashing them. And I think it should be localized to each different area so that you could. And then at the
we can't call for anything illegal here. It'd be terrible if people all over the country, like they did in Arizona this year, attacked all the red light cameras and the state capitulated and pulled them all out because the people were unstoppable. I mean, it'd be terrible if people actually exercised their power against tyranny like the Founding Fathers did. That is a horrible thing you're calling for, that type of civil disobedience. That's just horrible, Leo.
Yeah, well, see, it's a winner for us, and getting people to be aware of where they are. So if people could turn in these things to the video game company, and then people would know where they are locally. Well,
if you did something like that, you couldn't have a central system. Ideas are bulletproof, not central command centers. Okay? But it is terrible, though, I mean, that's stuff like the Founding Fathers did. I mean, you don't go out to all these surveillance systems that they lied about and said were for traffic, and now they admit are Homeland Security. I mean, you don't do that, or one of the CIA agents might not get caught when they're setting off a bomb. I mean, one of the Muslims. I mean, this is horrible what you're calling for, Leo. There are terrorists out there that want to get us. Never mind the government, thousands of secret tests murdering people that are now declassified. Let's trust them. The government's good. We need to have more surveillance. Of course, all of this surveillance is illegal. All of the wireless. In fact, I've got a big folder today where, in fact, here it is, smartphone spying on you. Forbes, Apple hit with 2 federal lawsuits over tracking iPhone and iPad users. Is Google Android next? Apple sued over applications giving information to advertisers. That's all uncivil and illegal. People go to jail for reading their neighbor's email. But when the government does it, it's illegal, but they don't get in trouble. So how dare you try to stop crime on your own? What a sicko. Leo, don't ever call here again. You're evil. Tyranny rival in California, you're on the air. I hope you're not as founding fatherish as Leo.
No, hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm glad to speak with you. I love what you and your team are doing. Been awake for probably like 7-8 months now, but I just want to get out there. How is it possible for like Charles Manson to basically brainwash and get people to do what he wanted to do when our government is selling death and eugenics through propaganda and all that other crap? But
well, I mean, number one, and I don't have an hour to get into it, Charles Manson was a front fall guy. They scrambled his brain after. It's 100% that was a CIA brainwashing operation to kind of officially end the 60s culture and then move into a new phase. That was 100% theatrical production. Sharon Tate was not killed by those lunatics. I mean, the whole thing was a production.
Okay.
I mean, he hung out with all of the most powerful people out there. I mean, it was totally staged.
Wow. That was all inside job.
Totally staged. Absolutely. Absolutely. It would take hours. It's ridiculous how much evidence there is.
Okay. Last thing was last month you did a quick pyramid scheme about, because Beck was saying George Soros was on top of the pyramid. I liked how that was a little educational thing. Is it possible you could do more little sketches like that?
Yes, I've got 2 graphics guys working on a whole pyramid presentation for the upcoming film to explain different pyramidal power structures. We're absolutely on it. Well done. We'll be right back with Charlotte Iserbyt. Dan, Eric, Steve, Tom, Sean, Martin, everybody else. I'll get to your calls before the hour ends. Charlotte can talk about a lot of issues, and we'll go to them quickly towards the end. But Charlotte Iserbyt doesn't like to brag about herself, but she was the head of policy, Department of Education, under Reagan, the #2 position. Her father and grandfather were Skull and Bones. Her father, Bohemian Grove. She is the lady, decades ago, that blew Skull and Bones wide open. The mainstream media denied that anything was even going on up until she leaked Sutton the info. Now, that was not known for a long time who did it because her father was still alive. I want this history, now that it can be talked about, to be discussed first. And she'll tell you, well, read Sutton's book or read Chris Milligan's excellent Fleshing Out Skull and Bones that's more recent, to see their deep research and overall bringing the info together. But she was a Skull and Bones East Coast family. And, she's got many documents never before seen. My guys were able to see them when they were up there 3 weeks ago. And so she's agreed. We appreciate it because I sent them up there about the Department of Education brainwashing program. And then I knew she had broken this info. We've interviewed her separately, briefly on this issue as part of other interviews. I wanted to get her on today. And, she was telling me during the break, getting her on, well, Alex, the stuff's out there. It's on my website. I know, but not the specifics of the family and how it works. We see films like The Good Shepherd, directed by Robert De Niro with Matt Damon, that the media hailed as very accurate. I don't know if it's accurate from what she's seen. I mean, it's got the guy dressed up as the devil, as a king, and the rituals, and that's reportedly accurate. The New York Observer got some of the devils equal death and all that stuff on video on the outside courtyard of the tomb. But I specifically, wanted her to just get into some of the other areas, like in that film, and in also some of the reports that there's Skull and Bones families, and that sometimes the wives get inducted in as well. So I wanted to talk to Charlotte about that because this is important historical information. Skull and Bones is one of the most powerful ruling class groups where a whole bunch of presidents, CIA directors, secretaries of state, you name it, come from. And so Charlotte joins us for the next 40 minutes or so. We'll talk about this, and then we'll get to those calls as I promised to. But Charlotte, the author of Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, which was now gone out of print, now joins us here today, but you can still read the free digital copy at her website. We'll tell you how to do that as well. She's a great humanitarian. Charlotte, great to have you here with us today.
Good afternoon, Alex, and I hope I can live up to your expectations.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Believe me, I've seen the footage the guy shot of the documents. Now, Charlotte, let's go back to the beginning and start with Anthony Sutton. Then we'll get into your family, and you're gracious to talk about this. I know some of it's painful, to go back and remember your father's death when you were caring for him and other things. But let's discuss how you got it to Sutton, why it couldn't be known at the time, what his book on Skull and Bones and the secret establishment covered.
I have been coming to this conclusion ever since I came back from overseas and worked in Soviet affairs, too, in the Department of State. I don't think there ever was a Cold War. I mean, I don't think there ever was a problem between the United States and the Soviet Union. They can call it Cold War because it wasn't hot.
But that's not kooky. That's actually come out in documents.
Well, yeah, I know, and I've always felt that way, but I think...
no, but they love McCarthy. I mean, the Russians have now released the documents. New York Times headline, McCarthy was right. It turned out but they liked him, just interrupting, talking about communist, as long as it was file clerks, so they could have a police state in the name of countering the Soviets and build us into the authoritarian system. But as soon as he said the army is running the communist, boom, it was over for him because he'd found out the truth. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think, though, that Sutton, with all of his extraordinary research on, or giving aid to the Soviet Union, I mean, we were making it possible for the development of their country technologically and militarily.
Gave them the nukes and then executed the Rosenbergs. Go ahead.
But then, also, I ran into the marvelous book, which is really my favorite book. My favorite book, Charlotte's favorite book, she has thousands of books, is by George Racy Jordan from Major Jordan's Diaries. Now, I would say that and Sutton and a few of the other books that your guys took pictures of. That book, too, that really was definitely important in bringing me to the conclusion that there never was a Cold War. They had to bring the phony wall had to come down and all that, and it did, and all of this had been, in secret papers, predicted that all of this was necessary for the merger to take place.
Yeah, the Carnegies wrote about that in the 20s.
Absolutely. So anyway, so Sutton must have called me, and I guess I mentioned to him, because I was staying out at the house, I was taking care of my father in New Jersey, and I think I probably said, have you checked on the order at Yale? And he said, well, yeah, he had, and he was very, very interested. He said, what do you know? And I told him that, my father and grandfather were members of the order. I have to point out that my father really had absolutely less than zero to do with the policies of the order which have brought us to where we are right now. My dad was a great constitutionalist, wonderful man. I can't think of, I could go on forever talking about him, and he was beloved by everybody, from the garbage man to the head, the top people in the corporations and in Europe.
And that's why it was his daughter that blew him wide open.
And, well, he did not know that. But
no, I know, but it just shows the bloodline. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what he did do, I'll mention this first, because I was at that point working with Phyllis Schlafly putting together the book Child Abuse in the Classroom. That's quite a marvelous book, folks, and it is at Samuel's website. It's a free, you can read it. So it's all the documentation on the hearings we had in the early 80s, which I was instrumental in on what they're doing to our children, the destruction of our children's morals and values. So anyway, Phyllis and I were talking about putting that book of hers together in order for her to sell it at the Republican convention coming up in, was 84, I guess. And my father was dying of cancer, and we put a little room off of the kitchen for him at home so that, he didn't have to go up and downstairs, and we'd be close to him. And so he had to listen to all this, mouth out of his daughter, Charlotte, and talking on the phone with people like Phyllis. And he heard all about globalism. I was talking about globalism and all these dreadful programs in the schools. And so about a week before he died, he looked at me and he said, Char, if I had longer, I'd help you. So really something remarkable happened there. I think he was, Phyllis and I, or myself, or whatever, we brainwashed. We deprogrammed him. But anyway, it was during that period that Sutton found out about, the books arrived in the mail one day, 3 of them, the membership list. And so I was taking care of my father's mail, and I opened them up, and I looked at them, and let me point out at this point, I knew nothing about Skull and Bones. I knew nothing about what they did. All I knew was we had a great big grandfather clock that my father had always said, don't ever let it wind down. Well, my son Sam says he knows why that is, because evidently there's some sort of mysterious reason for that, because I guess they're never meant to wind down, huh? So Dad always was fussy about that. Do not let that clock wind down. You've got to keep it going. So anyway, that's all I knew, and a few other things I can tell you about, too. But I wasn't... so when I saw the list, I thought, well, I've never seen these before. So there were 3 books that with the present membership, the past membership, or something had all members from the beginning, all mixed up, huh? And so I took them into my father, and he said, oh, gee, he said, I've never seen that before. He said, they never put the list in books. Okay, well, so I let him look at it, and then I took them back, and then I talked to Tony Sutton, and he said, Charlotte, would you lend them to me? And I said, well, I don't know, why not, as long as you get them back to me as soon as you can. I said, I feel a little bit like a traitor, but I feel it's important for you to have them. So anyway, I sent them to him, and he called me a couple of days later, and he said, this is the most remarkable experience I've ever had. He said, I've been trying to figure this thing out for a long time, and you're not kidding. He had with all his volumes that he was doing for Hoover, and he said, I just have never really been able to, pinpoint where does this support for working with the Soviets and bringing this country down come from.
Stay there. We're going to be right back. Charlotte Iserbyt. They must destroy the Republic to build their system.
Are we going to do what they say can't be done? We've got a long way to go.
Aaron Dykes, during the break, ran in and said, yeah, I was reading Sutton's book, and then I looked at it online. You've got the Brown Brother Harriman's building, which also funded Hitler. And here in the U.S., it's surrounded by all the Russian embassies and government facilities. And that's because the Russians, this was admitted at the time, were funded by the United States. During Stalin's time, Now, Hitler was a little different. They funded him, told him he was going to have Western support to invade other countries, then set him up and brought him down. But the Russian system is definitely a staged event up until the 1980s and 90s, probably still staged. But you were getting into Anthony Sutton, Charlotte Iserbyt, once he got the Skull and Bones membership list from you, the official internal list, he said he was blown away. Please continue.
Yeah, he just said he went and had copies made, at Kinko's or something, and then he put it all out on the dining room table, and he looked, and he said it was the first time that he understood completely what had happened, and that this was the entity, whatever you want to call it, the organization, the order, the fraternity, the whatever that was responsible for the direction that our country was moving in, militarily, corporate-wise, and education. He saw it. And so he was thrilled. And actually, I have to give Tony credit for not blowing the whistle. I didn't ask him not to. He just felt that it wasn't right for him to identify me. My dad was, by that time, he was gone. So I had no problem with that. But Tony just felt that it wasn't right, and I appreciated that. So anyway, it was very sad that he passed away, by the way, and I've always wondered about that.
He was a real gentleman. I tried to interview him. I interviewed him once, and then I tried to interview him a few years later, I guess back in '99, and he sent me, it was like 1 week before he died. Because I remember hearing like 2 weeks later he just died, and I got a kind email saying, I appreciate your work, Mr. Jones. I'd love to come on. I'm too ill. And then he dies a week later. That's a classy guy.
Well, I don't even know that he was that ill. I think he was ill. He had something wrong with, that inner ear business.
Yeah.
And that was why I couldn't meet with him way back then. I wanted to meet with him when I was in California. And he couldn't because of that. But he told me, he said, other than that, Charlotte, I'm fine. And so I believe, let's talk, we're really getting into conspiracy stuff here. I don't know why Anthony Sutton died. I have no idea. Of course, anybody can die. He could have had a heart attack. But I did talk to someone who was very close to him, and the feeling I got was that it was not. There were definitely questions about Anthony Sutton's passing.
I may have talked to him right after he'd been poisoned then, because he said, I'm not feeling well. I can't come on. He was literally, it was weird. It was like that with Gary Webb, who wrote the Dark Alliance series about the CIA drug dealing. He sent me this disc that was all his material and said, you have a website, put it up. And then he called back 6 months later and he said, you never put it up. And I said, this was like in '98 or something. I said, well, I'm not very technical. I'm going to try. And we barely had InfoWars up working well then. And then I called him back. We had put up a lot of it. And he said, I'm not ready to come on yet. This is a few years later. He said, I'm writing the book, though, that's going to blow him out of the water. And he was about to come out with that book when they shot him twice in the head. And then
well, they don't have any problem doing these things, as most of your listeners know. The wonderful the transcript of the Reese Committee hearings, the 3,000 pages that we have up on Samuel's website. That's the investigation of the tax-exempt foundations, 1953. And I understand from I think it's Dan Monteith. Well, I've found out from Bob Goldsboro. I bought the copy of it from Robert Goldsboro, but I didn't pay. I paid $3,000 for it. But I understand that Goldsboro was offered any amount of money to get that one copy. This is the foundations. One of the minions said, "We will pay you anything you want," and Goldsboro said, "No." Good for him, right? And then about 15 years later, I knew Goldsboro well. I said, gee, Bob, really? You're just sitting with that thing. We want to put it up on the Internet. And so he sold it to me for very little, basically, huh? So the point is this, that these people really mean business. I mean, when they're willing to pay anything for 3,000 pages of congressional testimony, because, of course, after the hearings were shut down, they went around the country and bought up all the copies that were in the libraries, huh? So anyway,
well, let's continue with Skull and Bones, one of the key globalist organizations, and what their master plan is. More about your family. Aaron's got some questions as well. You know, a lot of people have gotten killed fighting the globalist. A lot of people that exposed Skull and Bones have ended up dead. Now, the key book that she was given by Robert Goldsboro, he isn't dead, a great patriot, but he won't do interviews. And, of course, he knew Norman Dodd and the Reese Committee. We're going to talk about all that, just the basic facts here with Charlotte Iserbyt. But I want to get into some of the other little quirks or interesting pieces of information that folks might not know about Skull and Bones that she knows just from reading over these documents, but also her father and grandfather. Also what her dad said about Bohemian Grove. Aaron's got some things he wants to say. We're going back to her here in just a moment. Okay, Charlotte, let's move quick now. You're very gracious to be joining us here. You were getting into what Anthony Sutton had discovered, what Skull and Bones is, what their master plan is, how they build up the Muslim enemy that they really secretly control from the top. The low levels don't know it. They create the Nazi threat by funding it. They create the Soviet, which is on record now. They create the fake global warming, which is just made up to sell their takeover. They claim they're fixing education when really they're trying to destroy it. I mean, they are the masters of this Hegelian dialectic. And what is in these documents and what has been discovered is German sciences of brainwashing to, as you know, to create Hessian brainwashed soldiers for sale worldwide. That technology spread through Skull and Bones. I mean, quantify what Skull and Bones is from your deep research and what Sutton discovered. Then Aaron's got some points.
Well, the order, I do believe that it is connected with the Illuminati. And there is some pretty sound research that connects them. It is a German order. There's no question about that. I know that. And it's the elite. Everybody knows a lot of this stuff. The elite, how many families, 200 families or whatever, more perhaps, in the country who have enough money and have been very carefully educated, whether they're Bones or even some other fraternities that are close to Bones. But I think one of the best quotes, and it's pretty simple, it's right in the book cover on Sutton's book. And the reason I like it is because the guy that they're talking about, E.O. Matheson, who was Skull and Bones 1923, was a friend of my father's. I don't think they were very good friends because my father wasn't deeply involved. But my father knew him and had mentioned him. And this is what is right on the cover of the book. It says, quote, this is from E.O. Matheson, Skull and Bones 1923, to Donald Ogden Stewart, an earlier Skull and Bones year, 1916, about Matheson's, Maddie, they called him, upcoming appearance before the House Committee on Un-American Activities. So this is fascinating. Quote, as long as we have somebody from Bones who can bring pressure on the committee, I should think we'd be all right. Now that tells you the power of someone from Bones. Now that's Matheson talking to another Bones character. And I knew Matheson's daughter. She lived in Camden when I was on the local school board going up against all these values-destroying programs. And she was from a very elite lady, and she was the daughter of Matheson. And I went to a Christmas party one evening, and of course everybody was beating up on me then because I supported grammar, things like that, right? And I didn't like values-destroying programs. But she cornered me at this Christmas party and really beat up on me about my opposition to what was going on in the schools. I was on the school board. And I was so upset that I started to cry. Because it was in public that she was doing that. And so I just put my coat on. It was a snowy night. The moon was out and all. And I walked home. And I never forgot that because that was a daughter of an important person in the order. That's the one that I just quoted, huh? So she fell for all the garbage. I didn't. Although my father was never like him. My dad would never have been involved in hearings in Congress and lying and all this stuff. So,
but your dad, as he was dying, did talk about Bohemian Grove and
well, my dad, I want to correct you on this, Alex. My dad was not a member of Bohemian Grove. He was invited once.
Sure, okay.
By Edwin Blair, who was a very close friend of his. I think, they were roommates, but very close.
Sure, sorry, I got confused by that. But I mean, to be specific, your dad did say that he didn't like it.
He went because he was invited. He went and spent 10 days or something out there, and he came home, and he said it was very lush, very elegant, very interesting lectures and all, but he would never go back. He said that. I will never go back. So that was dead. Now, I can defend my father. I cannot really defend my grandfather that much, although I loved him, and he was a mining engineer. And he was very prominent, and he was probably one of the top in the world in the late 1890s.
Wasn't Harding a mining engineer, too?
What's that?
Harding, President Harding.
I don't know. But
I mean, I mean, to be specific here, though, Charlotte, I'm not saying your dad was a bad guy. He was a great guy, obviously, and through his daughter, this information comes to us as well. I just, going back into memory, I remember you saying that your dad said, basically that he disagreed with it all now and that he didn't like it.
What he said, he really didn't say that. He never got that close to what it all was. He said to me a week before he died, because I was really on my white horse. My horse very dirty now, huh? But I was on my white horse from 1970 to right now, and he knew what I was doing. And he said before he died, Char, if I had more time, I'd help you. And so, yeah, I think that he was a mayor of 3 towns on Long Island and in New Jersey. He was an Episcopalian. He went to church. He was a good Christian, all that. Now, my grandfather was a Mason. My grandfather came from Pennsylvania. He was the one that I do believe, please, Grandpa, forgive me. He's the one who was very close to the Fabians in South Africa. He was out there. He opened up the gold mines in the late 1880s in Johannesburg. And I had a picture of him with Sir A. Bailey. I can't find that picture. I don't know where it is. But anyway, Grandpa...
So that's the Cecil Rhodes connection right there.
Absolutely. So Grandpa really was involved, I think. But, on the other hand, he was my grandfather, and he was very dear to me, and I loved him, and he was not a snob. That's very interesting. Grandpa was the last person on earth you'd call a snob, and my father, too. The whole family's always been very, we just sort of get along with everybody, no matter
sure,
who.
Charlotte, and we're not here to put your family on trial for your dad and grandfather being Skull and Bones members.
No, but I just want to make the point here that they're not all what people think they are. It's really interesting. I mean, I knew my father's best friends. They were all in his wedding. When a Skull and Bones guy gets married, all the ushers are the members of Skull and Bones in that class. And then from that time on, you see them all the time. They were visiting the house. They were my parents' best friends and their wives. Huh? And you never would have known what the basic, what their goals were. There was one who I remember in particular, my sister's father, godfather, huh? And very nice. And he, believe it or not, was the founder of the Hemlock Society,
which pushes suicide.
Did you hear me? Well, yeah. I mean, this sort of thing really did surprise me.
Well, I mean, let's talk about what it is, because from Sutton's research, the info we've got, it is certainly a death cult, a Germanic death cult, and its mainline books have now been written. Clearly, you've got the Illuminati going on in Germany at the time. It's founded 1832, German money, British money, the Skull and Bone symbol worn on the Nazi caps. Specifically, though, what is the end game goal from what you've researched and what you know? I mean, what is Skull and Bones? What are they after?
Well, I think half of them or 2/3 of them are just little boys, they think they're playing little boys' games, right? A third of them mean big business, huh? I mean, one of my father's roommates, who I really liked very well, his name was Charles Spofford, and he was a very fine man, and I have nothing but good things to say about him. But when I was in the State Department in the late 50s in Middle Eastern affairs, all of a sudden I was in the elevator when the Suez Canal was blowing up, or something was going on. Something's always going on out there. But anyway, on the elevator is Chuck Spofford. And so I said, hello, Mr. Spofford, and I found out that he was the legal counsel from Davis Polk for the Suez Canal Company.
Ah.
Huh? Okay. Now, that, I did write about that in, not in Anthony's book, but in Fleshing Out Skull and Bones. I have a chapter in that book, right? I was asked to do a chapter in that book, which basically tells a lot of this stuff that we're talking about right now, Alex. So, anyway, Charles Spofford died, finally died, and interesting story. He had a horrible stroke, and he was divorced from his sort of fancy wife. He ended up marrying this lovely woman who I had known at Davis Polk when I worked there as a legal secretary. He married this gal who didn't have any fancy background or anything. She's a wonderful woman, and he spent the rest of his life, being taken care of by her. Now, these are the weird things about Skull and Bones people. I mean, here he was, very famous all over the world. You could type his name in, Charles Spofford. He's a member of everything, the French Croix de Guerre, the blah-blah-blah. You know what my father said about him once? Oh, yes. He did. This is funny. At the dining room table once, my dad, he sat back. I guess he maybe had a few drinks, and he had a cigar, and he was talking about, he said, boy, it's really interesting how Chuck got that promotion. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, Chuck Spofford, the one I'm talking about now, he said, when he was just a private or something, or a lieutenant in World War II in Europe, but after he got promoted to being the undersecretary for NATO or something, and Dad said, it's really interesting how some people can rise to the top.
Yeah, he was making a joke. Charlotte, we're almost out of time. All of this is intriguing information. Aaron, you've got comments about Skull and Bones.
Just a little bit about Averell Harriman, who was one of the major players in the 20th century. Hi, Charlotte, by the way.
There, Aaron.
Nice to talk to you. I saw his name in the membership list you have. He has a bio, maybe 2/3 of a page long, and his public bio just shows how much he was involved with Russian diplomacy. It's on record that he knew Stalin more than any other person not from Russia. And then you read Tarpley and you read Sutton and these other authors about how much he and Prescott Bush at Brown Brothers Harriman were involved in setting up the Soviet Union.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Harriman is such an important one. And, it's just pure evil. That's all I can say. Any order like that, we start studying it or what their goals are. Even if they hadn't done all these awful things, the games they play and the horrible, what they go through to become a member, that I couldn't understand. My father was very sound, a very sound person. I can't even imagine him going through those ridiculous...
Well, he's young. That's why the elite put their children into these organizations, is so it can be done by their peers, because they know they'll do things that peers say that they wouldn't do if their parents were telling them to do it. In fact, specifically, let's go back to your son and his research into the clock. And I've done other research in other occultic orders where they can basically do a spell where they claim that this spirit is attached to you as long as the clock is still moving.
Well, I think that's probably what Samuel was talking about.
Yeah.
But you know what I did to it? I had these 3 copper balls on the top of it, and they needed to be repaired. So the guy at the shop said, well, look, I'll give you 3 eagles for the time being, Charlotte. So we took the gold balls off. There's 3 of them on the top of the clock, and I put 3 eagles up there. And, Skull and Bones must be having hysterics.
Yeah, we've shown the photo of that clock. We'll show it again here in a moment. but specifically from your son's research into it, I mean, what other occultic information do you have, or was there anything, any other little things that your father was concerned about?
No, I really can't be very helpful on that.
Well, I know that
what I have to say about the order and the lack of attention to certain very important things that they've been doing. It's okay to write about the order. You can say anything you want about the order, but don't touch education. And that we know because that, what's her name, Samantha, what's her name, the gal who wrote the book when Tony's book was coming out on fleshing out Skull and Bones?
Yes, Alexandra Thompson, I believe.
Yeah, well, whatever.
She wrote Secrets of the Tomb. Let me look up her name real quick. Go ahead. Yes.
It's important to point this out because just before America's Secret Establishment by Sutton came out, they found out, and they got her to write that book, I think. This is what I've heard, okay? And if you look at her book and any other book that's been written or allowed to be reviewed or whatever, you see nothing about education. Nothing. And as far as I'm concerned, of course, turning over all our secrets and stuff to the Soviet Union is total treason, right? But the method, the Pavlovian, the method coming out of Leipzig, Germany, and it was Skull and Bones, it was the Hopkins University that sent these guys over there originally.
It was a mind control program that they were going to bring in, and she must have gotten married because now her last name is Alexandra. No, it's Alexandra Robbins. That's her name. Go ahead.
That's her name. And if you read her book, it's good, but there isn't a single mention of the mind control method that came out of
Well, by the way, she
Leipzig.
comes from another, what is it, Scroll and Key or Order of the Serpent, because I had her on. She admits she comes from one of the other elite groups.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. But, again, what I want to point out is that the reason that the fact that they won't mention education shows that is really the most important thing that happened was their role in bringing that horrible method over from Leipzig. And I know Tony Sutton, he was also very interested in the work done by Paolo Leone. And I want to tell your people to go on the Internet, look, and Google this book. It's called The Leipzig Connection. Leipzig, Germany, okay, connection. And it may not talk about Skull and Bones. It does talk about a lot of the German professors and everything. But that book, to me, people would say, my book's great, everybody else's book is great. I think the most important book ever written on American education is called The Leipzig Connection. And you can order it. Because that's what's going in right now. Now, Anthony Sutton also felt that was the most important book because he has quoted from it in his marvelous book on the order.
Well, everything is education, and they federalized it. Now they're internationalizing it. People get more and more dumbed down. They can't communicate. And then, oh, by the way, it's an incredible article in National Geographic about Singapore and a British intelligence operative, they don't admit that, but it's public, and an admitted communist, from the big government-funded Oxford, the minister mentor, he posed as an anti-British guy to bring in the new government, and they admit in here that their system of education is to dumb people down so that they can't communicate, so they can just be factory drones, and they admit it's tyranny, and they admit the Singapore model is for the entire world. But it's just so incredible to see now, Charlotte, how out in the open they've gotten with all of this.
Well, I wish you'd send me that, will you?
Yeah, it's a National Geographic, January 2010 issue. National Geographic, Merging Man and Machine is the cover of it. And I had gotten it for a separate issue, wanting to read about the bionic stuff, which is another system, which, again, I'm for technology, but they're using it for control. But it's got the article about Singapore, and it's just so scary. The first photograph in it basically promotes the draconian controls that they're putting into the country.
I wonder, I knew that Singapore was bad on that. I'm going to be in Singapore, actually, for a little bit. But I'm really Alex, please don't forget. You're probably going to forget, but will you get Aaron or someone to please send me at least the title so I can Google that article?
Yeah, the title is The Singapore Solution. How did a sleepy little island transform into a high-tech powerhouse in one generation? It was all in the plan. Now, they don't tell you it was British intelligence, staged the peaceful handover of power. How about the Queen of England still runs Canada and Australia and can suspend the parliament anytime she wants. It's all on record. It's the same thing here, but they admit the population is dying out. That's good. Oh, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
But that's, and that people have no creativity and are slaves. But it's just how wonderful it is. In fact, show me document cam shots here, guys.
Huh.
And
I really want to have that. It's the least you can do for me.
Of course, I'll send it to you. And they talk about the minister mentor, the leader, Lee Kuan Yew, and how he rules everything, and how it's a total control society. And just how wonderful it is, and how it's the model for the rest of the planet. And you may not like it, but they know best.
I really want that, because I think that's what's going in here too. And if a child kicks a milk carton down the corridor in the high school, he's going to have his hand cut off in Singapore. And we're getting there here.
Oh no, they say this is the model now, that the global elite love it, and it's what we're going to have.
Right.
And they talk about how great it is.
Well, I just hope that the American people will. Well, Alex, I don't know what we do without your show and your character, your personality, which is so in their face. I love it.
Oh, these are very sick people, and they say we're animals in here, and that the ruling elite knows best, and that freedom is bad. I mean. It's so sick, though, that they now just put it out in the open, Charlotte.
Well, that's why I want to see it. And if you don't send that to me, I'm going to be very upset.
Was there a photo of scanning someone's forehead?
Oh, yeah. It talks about the medical tyranny and how great it is.
Oh, yeah. Please, please, please. Well, who knows? I can read it on the boat, and maybe when I get to Singapore, I can get in some trouble.
No. We don't want that to happen. You're not allowed to. Just like China, they shut down the only independent magazine today in China, and our government says that's good now. And now the FCC is announcing they're taking over the internet. Now that's big news today, and Jay Rockefeller says we'd be better off without it. I mean, they're really just out in the open.
I know. Well, anyway, I don't know what else I can tell you about the order at Yale, except I'm positive that it is a branch of a very important branch of the Illuminati. I'm really pretty positive of that.
Well, it's the only direct branch to the Illuminati that's documented.
That's right.
Of the original Illuminati, and that's confirmed.
And the guys did see the book, the original book that I have, by Robeson. And that's an extraordinary book in itself. I mean, the fact that one page there sounds like out of a United States global education textbook. It's amazing. It talks about dropping borders and changing the children's values.
Charlotte, we're out of time. We're going to be right back after the break. We're going to overdrive. Stay with us. And we've got to get good people rallied against it, but I kind of ended that last hour scrambled there, trying to apologize to Georgia and other people that were patiently holding that we're going to try to go to. But just finishing up with Charlotte Iserbyt, any other points that you've got or questions for Aaron Dykes?
Well, we could probably talk all day as we did before in the interview, but I just wanted to thank you again for speaking with us and all the interesting stuff that you brought out.
Oh, is that Aaron?
Yes, it's Aaron Dykes. He's here with you.
Hello, Aaron. Yeah, well, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Aaron. We send you our best from here, and I just am very grateful that you guys are there, because I don't know that there's any other group that's doing anything like you are doing, and your listeners all know that the Council for National Policy is just as evil as the Council on Foreign Relations. So the left and the right have the same agenda, And so we've got to understand that. And once we do understand that, we can work together sort of in the middle. And
let's briefly talk about the Council for National Policy, because the Hunt brothers, if I'm not incorrect, set that up, and some evidence showed they were actually against the globalist, but then it got infiltrated and taken over, or was it always bad? Because I've had people on, and folks have pointed this out. I wasn't even really aware of it until the last decade. And some people, kind of on the left, say, "Oh, it's even more powerful." They kind of make it a left-right paradigm. But I see CFR, Council for National Policy. A lot of people in both groups are kind of like porch masons. They're not at the top of the pyramid, but certainly now the Council for National Policy, there's no doubt it's promoting a globalist agenda. I mean, what's your view on it?
Oh, I believe so. I mean, if you take, NAFTA. Richard Allen, he was with Reagan, right, in the Reagan White House, and he was fired because he accepted a wristwatch from the Japanese, and he went to work for the Heritage Foundation. And he's Council for National Policy, and that's Heritage Foundation. Ed Fulner, who set up an office in Moscow when the wall came down. These are CNP people, but Richard Allen wrote NAFTA. And, so people have got to understand that, although, Heritage Foundation, turns out all these wonderful reports and everything, that 90% of which you could agree with, but 10% of what they're doing is really even more important than the 90%, because they have the globalist agenda. They love the UN. They want an international system. They, of course, think they're going to run it. But they're going to run it with Rockefeller and everybody else. It's a very, very bad, or bad's hardly the word. It's a very deceitful, deceptive group that I found out through trying to work with them. They hate me, but Roz Haley from Texas, down there where you guys are, she was lovely, like the grande dame of the Council for National Policy. And she's a close friend of Norman Dawes. She and I put together a project to get out of the UN, a really good project. And we sent letters to 300 or more members of the Council for National Policy to help us. Samuel, my son, typed all the labels out of the computer. This was 15 years ago. We didn't get one single response, even though Roz Haley was highly thought of in the Council for National Policy.
Charlotte, this segment's over, but now I want to get you back on about the CMP and the infiltration of conservative movements by the globalists. This is, because just like Skull and Bones, you've got Democrats and Republicans from there, correct?
You absolutely do, and I think they're more dangerous. I think that the neoconservatives are more dangerous than the left, because the left tells the truth, as bad as it is. They don't lie all the time to us. We know what they're doing, but the right wing is lying.
Incredible. I'm going to have you back on then soon on the CMP. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.